You know, there's this weirdly human thing we all do, a behavior that's way more common than you'd think, and it has a pretty great name. Today, we're diving into the ostrich effect.
Come on, we've all been there, right? That little feeling in your stomach, that moment where you actively choose to just not look. Well, it turns out that feeling has a name, and it affects everything from how we manage our money to how we take care of our health.
And this whole idea of, if I don't see it, it's not real. It's nothing new. Take a look at this cartoon from the early 1900s. It's a perfect symbol for this. You've got this anti-suffrage ostrich literally burying its head in the sand, trying to ignore the sun rising on women's freedom. It's just this powerful image of choosing to stay in the dark, even when change is right there in front of you.
All right, Section 1, burying your head in sand. It's time to put an official name to that all-too-familiar feeling.
So here it is. The term was actually coined by two researchers, Dan Galai and Orly Sadeh. They named it after that classic myth, which, by the way, isn't true, that ostriches hide from danger by burying their heads. And the key part of this definition is the word useful. We're not just avoiding random bad news, we're actively avoiding useful, important information, all because we just don't want to feel bad.
So, Section 2, the ostrich in action. Where does this actually show up in the real world? Well, it turns out pretty much everywhere, and often in situations where the stakes are incredibly high.
I mean, the range here is just wild. In finance, it's classic. Investors check their portfolios constantly when the market's up, but the moment it dips, suddenly they're not so interested. In healthcare, it could be someone with diabetes avoiding that crucial blood sugar check. And on a huge scale, when people hear about how urgent something like energy depletion is, it can actually make them less likely to go looking for more info. It's like the bigger the problem, the deeper we want to bury our heads.
This quote from the original researchers just hits the nail on the head. We don't just accidentally ignore bad news. Sometimes we will literally pay for the bliss of ignorance. Think about it. Maybe you'd pick an investment that doesn't show you daily updates, even if it's not the best one, just so you don't have to deal with the anxiety of seeing a potential loss.
And this is absolutely fascinating. In one study, they made mammograms totally free and easy to get. You'd think screening rates would shoot up, right? But if a woman's coworker had recently been diagnosed with breast cancer, she was actually 8% less likely to get screened. Just let that sink in. The closer the danger felt, the more powerful the urge was to just look away.
Okay, Section 3, why we ignore bad news. So, what is going on in our brains that makes us act this way? Let's get into the psychology of it all.
Researchers think it pretty much boils down to three main psychological drivers: our deep need to avoid discomfort, how much we trust the information we're getting, and our very powerful fear of loss.
First up is cognitive dissonance. It sounds complicated, but the idea is actually simple. Our brains love it when things are consistent. So when we get new information that clashes with something we believe, like I'm a pretty healthy person versus my blood sugar is dangerously high, it creates a ton of mental stress. And what's the easiest, quickest way to get rid of that stress? Just pretend you never heard that new information.
Next, we've got trustability. Turns out we're just wired to be more skeptical of bad news. Our brain is trying to protect our ego, so when we hear something negative, our first reaction is to question it. But when we hear something positive, we accept it, no questions asked. Our default setting is basically to doubt the bad and believe the good.
And finally, loss aversion. Oh boy, this one is a biggie. For our brains, the pain of losing something feels way more intense than the pleasure of gaining the exact same thing. That fear of seeing a loss in our investment account is so powerful that we'd literally rather not look at all than risk feeling that sting.
So it really sounds like we're all just hardwired to hide from bad news. But is that really the whole story?
Section 4, the rise of the meerkat. Because, as it turns out, not everyone buries their head. There is another animal in this psychological zoo.
So meet the meerkat effect. It is the complete and total opposite of the ostrich. Instead of running and hiding when things go south, some people become hyper-vigilant. They check their portfolios more when the market is tanking. They want all the information they can get, standing on high alert.
So which one are we? A massive study of over 100,000 investors gives us a really clear answer. The ostrich is definitely the majority, at about 79%. But a pretty surprising 21%, that's more than 1 in 5 people, did the exact opposite. They went full meerkat.
And the data gets even more nuanced. That same study found that the tendency to act like an ostrich was a little bit higher in men, in older investors, and in wealthier investors. So this suggests our reaction to bad news isn't just some universal human instinct. It can actually be shaped by our life experiences and who we are.
Okay, Section 5. What animal are you? This really brings us to the most important question, right? In this whole ostrich versus meerkat showdown, where do you fit?
So you've got these two completely different reactions to the exact same threat. The ostrich is looking for comfort by avoiding the bad news. The meerkat is looking for a sense of control by confronting it head-on. Neither one is necessarily better than the other. They're just fundamentally different ways of coping with scary information.
Ultimately, which animal you lean towards probably depends on all those things we just talked about. How much do you hate the feeling of loss? How much do you trust where the bad news is coming from? And how okay are you with having your worldview challenged? Some researchers even think your cultural background could play a big role, which is a whole other fascinating area to explore.
So the question I want to leave you with is this. Really think about how you react when the pressure is on. When you're faced with news that you know might hurt, but you also know might be important, what's your gut instinct? Do you bury your head, or do you stand up and watch closely? Are you an ostrich, or are you a meerkat?